We are at the Vernon Hills Athletic Complex, and we're going to do a little bit of recap about the history of this place with Village Engineer, Public Works Director Dave Brown. Prior to you getting ready to retire, because you played such an instrumental part in getting this to be what it is today. And if you, especially if you've not lived here very long, it's hard to understand what this used to be. And let's back up on what Vernon Hills the athletic complex is, because it actually used to be just farmlands. It was Curtis Candy Company, and it was all farm around here. Where all the office buildings, where everything was farm.
Yeah, this section of Vernon Hills was agricultural industry, so I suspect a lot of corn and crops were here. And what a lot of us remember is the original airfields that were out here, and those were owned by the Curtis Candy Company. And yeah, they started when planes were first being invented. They started their own company and promotionals with the planes. They also, in some of my research, looked at how they would have these private airports that rich businessmen from Chicago would fly from one city to the other. So that was the genesis of why airports were first here.
And there were a lot of them around here. There were little airports everywhere.
Yes, yes. And then we had World War II came, and the military needed air bases like this. And so they ended up buying it from the Candy Company, and they ended up having this as a training facility, an auxiliary site from Glenview. So pilots would fly from Glenview to here, they'd do their training. There's even a sign out here of Bush Sr. and a little memento to him that advises that he trained at this facility.
Right. So yeah, thank you to American Legion Post 1247. They put a historical marker up near one of the entrances to Rust-Oleum, Vernon Hills High School field. So, and when you think about that, just about every naval pilot probably did touch down here, and I remember when this was scrub brush and we were still talking about what it could be. You and I were up here doing some videos and walking through, and you can still see some of the remnants of these platforms where the pilots, they were made to look like the deck of an aircraft carrier, but it was not in the water. It was just laying out here.
Yeah, the Great Lakes region was an important region during World War II. Certainly, it was much safer than the Atlantic or the Pacific and the more war zones. So the Great Lakes was a perfect location for the training. And yeah, they had wood platforms that they would put on different ships to allow the planes to touch down and take off. And they had a decking system out here. I don't know if it's called a tail hook. I don't know the military term for it, but even the cable was across that. So a lot of the remnants of the past and what this site used to be. And really, I think the story is it used to be for military operations, and then it transitioned towards these great sports fields that the kids get to throw a ball, kick a ball, etc. And what a beautiful site it is.
I think it was Craig Warner who said, think of all these young people that came through here and trained, and then they went off to combat. Young people training for combat, and now it's young people out here and the families having they sacrificed so we could have something like this.
Yeah, and what a shout out. My dad was in the Air Force for 22 years, so I'm a GI brat, and just a shout out to the military and the vets and for everything that they do. I guess I will also add is, as part of the transition for the redevelopment, right over our shoulders is a beautiful pond. So one of the things that I think we're most proud of is what used to reside in this area was Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. So 3 different military batteries for missiles to be launched to protect us. There's a series of the Nike program that they had surrounding larger cities, certainly city of Chicago, to protect us. And so I guess it was under the concept of mutual destruction. So I'm glad to say things have changed. What used to be here for the missile magazines, other than the enjoyment of kids who would break into them, was also, for military purposes. Once we started to put together a plan what it should be, we needed detention. And so this was a perfect location where we removed the missile magazines, and then we were able to construct a pond. Each of these missile magazines, you could fit a typical single-family two-story house in each of those. And in being in those earlier, it just reminds me of like 1950s technology and how everything would be, back in the movies that we would
Yeah,
watch.
yeah.
So,
Well, and I know that those were still here. People who are old timers who grew up around here, they'd come and mess around up because it was a big empty area, and then you'd have these giant underground bunkers with those giant concrete structures. Uh, pretty amazing structures. It was pretty amazing the technology that we were hoping was saving our country. There were similar places in Skokie Lagoon and other places like that. So one of the things happened that when the reason that the village even got this land was eventually the Navy and the Army and the federal government said, "Yep, it's surplus. You can do something with it." And then but that was a long time coming. There were a lot of people that worked since the late 1960s just to make sure we all had our hand in the pot there for that, so it didn't go elsewhere.
yeah, the Base Closure Act that they had is really the military took a look at what their needs are. There are certain bases that they declared surplus, so they went through that exercise of what should it become into the future. And the pecking order is certainly the federal, the state, and then local. So they first asked those other entities what would be put on this site, and ultimately through some great political discussions and support, we were able to say, we think it would be very important for our residents to build sports fields. And so we partnered with Vernon Hills High School, Stevenson, Prairie View Elementary, and the Village of Vernon Hills all put together a plan. We all cooperated with each other. I'm proud that I was part of supporting not just the Village of Vernon Hills, but all of the school districts in those contracts. And it's quite a site that we all get to enjoy.
Well, I think about other places that surplus land was taken and then sold for a good buck to developers, but in this case, everybody, the powers that be, like you said, cooperated and made it a decision, something that could be used by everybody, because once it's gone, it's gone. So to be able to have this.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what were some of our challenges? We had large runways. Well, that wasn't as much of a challenge. So what do you do with concrete runways? You crush it up for gravel and you make parking lots, you make roadways. So we were able to reuse that. One of the largest challenges is where Rust-Oleum Field is right now for Vernon Hills High School, right at the 50-yard line. That's where the old Vortec used to be. And yes, we get a lot of questions. What is this futuristic building out on the site? It's really a beacon for communications, for airspace, so a pilot knows from one beacon to the other where they are in airspace.
Yeah. So what had to happen then, because like you said, right, the 50-yard line, there was an old Vortec. It was smaller, I think. But there were so many restrictions around that beacon that was used for O'Hare. Now they do use GPS as the primary way, but this is still a redundant system that they keep in play. But you had rules about how high something could be, how close it could be, how this, how that, and everybody's like, no, nothing's going to happen. Not going to work. They're not going to let you do it. But yet we have Rust-Oleum Field, and next to it we have the new Vortec because everybody just worked together.
Yeah, and working together means, asking for money. And one of the things that we had to do was, yes, there was discussions whether or not it was just a redundancy, whether it was needed or not. Well, ultimately the FAA said it is needed, and this is what you shall do. There was a new one that was built in Dallas, and that was state-of-the-art. So we got the state-of-the-art one. It's officially called the Cowboy because it did come from Texas, and it's serving the needs for airspace.
Yeah, and did you have to sink? Did Rust-Oleum Field have to go down in a little? Was that something I remember because you were worried about the lights or the bleachers or something?
Well, there's a lot of considerations. This is one of the highest points in Vernon Hills, and so much like today, it is very windy, it gets cold, and so we thought it was important to sink the fields to the degree possible. I went to Michigan Tech. I did not go to University of Michigan, but I am familiar with their stadium, and it is sunken. And that was one of the concepts of, can we lower it and then protect people from the wind, etc., and make it a nicer environment. We knew there's a detention pond that's downstream, so we could lower it just above that, but no lower. And we put under drains in the facility, and it seems to be serving the kids really well.
It's a beautiful facility. And anybody who's ever played baseball, softball, soccer, lacrosse, they know it's windy up here. It just always is. It just must come from, I don't know, Minnesota. I don't know where this wind is coming from. And a lot of things, you talked about money that had to go into things, grants, people at like Mark Kirk's office, Congressman Porter's office, people in all the different communities. Everybody found a way to do this together, and it gets better every year too.
Yeah, and maybe the other story is I just had a scheduling meeting for, all the affiliates and what they're going to use the fields for, and these fields are used. There's not a lot of available time, and that's a good problem to have. A shout out to whether it's Mayor Byrne or whether it's the other trustees. They remember when they had little kids and they were the coaches, etc. So I know they're just very pleased and supportive of all the affiliates and the park district and everyone who helps the kids enjoy themselves. And so I think that's one of the other stories.
Yeah, and it's a great story too. And when you think about it, our kids have benefited from it. All of our kids in the community. But people come from all around here too, and they are amazed at this gem. You have the Pipe City Lacrosse, or you have some of these showcases where people come from around the world to play sports, and it's great for the wider community. It's great not just for Vernon Hills; it's great for the whole region. So
yeah, and the story as far as the community and how 3 different school districts and a village all pulled our resources, our efforts, and worked together. I mean, that is what the affiliates really shared with me at the last meeting, is just like, it's different. Going and working in some other areas, the spirit of cooperation isn't what it is in Vernon Hills, and that's what makes Vernon Hills a special place.
Always partnering wherever we can to make everything go as well as we can. So it's a beautiful place. If you've never been out here, haven't been out here lately, come take a walk. Maybe on a day that the sun is nice, but maybe on a little bit warmer day. Again, the wind is still here. So, but thank you for all you and the whole team did, going way back. So thank you for all you did to make this come through to what it is today. Retire in good health, because this is a great place. You'll have to come back and take a walk and see how it just continues to improve every year.
I plan on spending quality time out here.